The best things in games are the things you don't expect to happen. When you think you've got it figured out and you're on a plan, and then, boom, it all goes wrong. Let's take a look at what happened in the last couple turns. The area along the coast road is really the biggest change. The Vichy thought they were in really good position. They were right around this river line, even though the Commonwealth had got across it. They were very weak. The Commonwealth has suffered a lot of losses, so they weren't in much of a position to attack. So unfortunately that meant the Vichy, rather unwisely, started to try to load up farther to the east. But then disaster struck in the form of fate. High replacement rolls, combined with a recovery and then some reinforcements, allowed the Commonwealth to load up right along this line and then attack very strongly, inflicting multiple casualties on the now very depleted Vichy force. Vichy tried to counterattack and managed to. They were actually pushed all the way back past this river line here. They managed to get forward, retake this town, but now they're so weak, especially to the east in this area here. See this cavalry right there has a track up through the hills, mountains, right around basically both of these next river lines. The Vichy only have 3-4 units to try to cover all of that ground. At best they can recover 1 unit, possibly shore up the defense a little, and then they might be able to shift someone from over here, but it's just too far away. I don't think they can make the move. So they're in a very precarious spot here, and unlikely to hold for much longer. It's just the way of gaming that these spots that were under attack 2-3 times in a row by the Commonwealth just didn't make any ground. Suddenly got excellent rolls on the barrage tables, on the combat tables. They were able to punch through, and that just opened the whole area up. So the Commonwealth didn't make tremendous territorial gains, but they made such gains in terms of the balance of force that they're in a very good position right now. To the east, the Free French have been slowly working their way up the road and rail line, basically just chipping away at the defenders. The defenders have been slowly falling back. Vichy managed to get all of their supply out and back up to Damascus. Over here at Kenitra, they've put up some pretty good defensive line here, but right at the point when it looks like the Allies are unlikely to attack very strongly, now that they're making such great progress on the coast road. So the Vichy are likely going to have to try to reposition. Got a very strong line here. They're going to have to fuel up these motorized battalions and get them towards the west, towards the coast. Maybe they can attack down here, try to disrupt the potential rear area. It's going to be tough because this just isn't a very good position for that. I think those are the two best options. Relocate forces, basically strip the Damascus defenses, hope that the terrain is enough of a barrier, and maybe a counterattack down here. So that's where we will pick up the June 21st turn. In a rare break from form, this turn the Allies rolled for initiative, and they're going to choose to take that initiative and move first. They have such an advantage on the coast road. Don't want to give the French a chance to reposition and potentially block our movement. So we're going to try to hit them hard, see if we can get through. We managed 2.5 supply points, so we're going to mostly keep our coast road operations supply, but we're going to put a little bit over on the east side for the Free French, even though we don't expect to do too much attacking with them. No reinforcements and no recovery this turn, so we'll just get right into the mode and movement phase. In a rare break from form, this turn the Allies rolled for initiative, and they're going to choose to take that initiative and move first. They have such an advantage on the coast road. Don't want to give the French a chance to reposition and potentially block our movement. So we're going to try to hit them hard, see if we can get through. We managed 2.5 supply points, so we're going to mostly keep our coast road operations supply, but we're going to put a little bit over on the east side for the Free French, even though we don't expect to do too much attacking with them. No reinforcements and no recovery this turn, so we'll just get right into the mode and movement phase. I was fairly conservative with the moves. I wanted to sort of try to surround the Vichy here, put some air and naval power in place for some barrages, and push these cavalry up beyond the French river line here. But that means I had to run some supply out there to keep them alive in the supply phase. In the west, I just slowly move the Free French up. Might go ahead and take a run at this unit in the next combat phase, just to give them something to do, but otherwise we're going to keep our focus on the coast road for this turn. I do have the air and the naval barrages to resolve. That's thunder, not gunfire. And we will go ahead and roll for those. So successful rolls on both counts. The flak did not have any effect, so the air were able to go in, attack that stack there and disorganize it. And the naval guns were able to disorganize this one. So the Commonwealth will be in a good position here for their coming attacks. All units are in trace supply, except for these 2 cavalry units, but we have some supply dumped on the map there, brought up by some trucks. So we'll just have them eat off the map and keep them alive. But all the other units are good to go. Means we can move into our reaction phase for the Vichy. Unfortunately, the Vichy don't have much to react with. They have some artillery here and here, but their bombers are inactive, having flown their last turn. So I don't know of a place where I think I can have any kind of effect. Unless I just try to retreat with these guys. I don't think I can really get too far with them. So, unfortunately, we're not going to have any Vichy response here. That'll bring us to the Allied attack phase. I think we're definitely going to hit the coast road here, but also we're going to try to attack with the Free French over there on the Eastern Road and Railway. We'll start right here. I think I'm going to throw probably this stack against that stack, and then these 2 against that one. That will be 2 supply tokens per side. I'm going to go ahead and burn the French, the Vichy supply, even though I think they might take a loss. It's better than letting it fall into the hands of the Commonwealth. So a minor alteration, I decided to attack with these 2 stacks here, and against that one. Rolled pretty well. Got an attacker exploit 4 with a defender losing 1 and option 2. So this is just the result we wanted because we get to kill a unit. Then they have to retreat 2 hexes. Because they're already disorganized, they would retreat here. That's in the ZOC of this stack there, so 2 kills. I'll go ahead and advance into this hex. Mark them with a exploitation 4 and continue to my next attack. I'm going to throw everything I have, these 2 stacks. It'll be a total of 6 supply point or tokens. And the Vichy have a armored car battalion and 2 artillery battalions, so I'm going to go ahead and probably spend the supply on the armored car. Maybe I shouldn't spend the supply on anybody. Basically, they're all going to get killed one way or the other. So I'm going to go ahead and use internal stocks and knock over some counters and let everybody chew up their own supply and see if they survive. That'll be an interesting attack here. So we can muster 29 attack factors against basically 5. We have a 4 action rating against a 2, so this is probably going to be a major Commonwealth victory, absent some poor dice. Why did I say poor dice? That's just what they got. Well, good dice for the Vichy. They rolled Defender Surprise, so they inflict an attacker losing 1, but the defender has an option of 1. So, if we retreat into a ZOC, we all die. So we're going to take our option of 1. Since we led with the armored car unit, we'll let them die and save that artillery. But that means the attackers have to lose 1. At least they don't have to retreat. But that's a pretty good outcome for the Vichy, really. We'll just throw the Free French at the Vichy there. You get 12 factors against 3. I'm going to use stocks for the Vichy since they are more or less blocked from any supply. We'll go ahead and use two tokens for the Free French attack. OCS is a bloody combat system, to be sure. So we rolled another pretty poor set of dice. Attacker loses 1. The defender has to option 1. So since he has to retreat into his enemy zone of control, he will become disorganized. But at a high cost to the Free French. Who remembers, am I allowed to advance into that hex since the defender retreated and I didn't have an option? I don't remember, I don't suppose it's really going to matter, but that's going to be it for our combat phase. So for the exploit phase, I'm going to go ahead and run this French armored battalion. No real point to this other than to do it. Possibly starve that guy in his next supply phase. On the coast road here I have exploit 4. But all these are 3 rated, I believe, or less. Oh well, excuse me, I have 1. It is a 4. So I can go ahead and attack, I think an overrun attack with him against that hex. But dice are starting to even out a little bit here. So I can throw this battalion at this hex, and this is just 2 sad little artillery battalions in that village. Should be no match, right? Be a 4 action rating against a 1, and yet I roll a Defender Surprise and kill the attacking Commonwealth battalion. So that's a win for the Vichy again. That's one of those cases where you say, I hate those surprise rules, but it certainly was a surprise. Guess those kind of things happen in combat, right? The only other possible exploitation I have is right here. And I just don't think it's worth the bother. I could try. It cost me 2 supply tokens. But in all likelihood I'm just going to take a beating. But then on the other hand, they would be out of supply since they used up the last of their internal stocks. So I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it. What the heck. So that's 2 supply tokens, 1 to fuel and move, and the other to conduct the attack. So I roll a little better. I get a defender loses 1, option 1, and the attacker options 1. I think I'm going to take my option, because that's a tiny little company, I don't really care about losing it. chances are I can exchange it for a much better unit in the recovery phase. And that forces a retreat by the defender, and since it's in a zone of control and they're already disorganized, they would be killed as well. So we will kill the rest of the Vichy stack there. I can't occupy the village, but at least I got rid of those units. That'll be the end of my exploit. I don't have anybody else to move, no barrages or combats to undertake. I don't have any cleanup to perform, so that'll be the end of the allied half of the turn. So they cleared looks like they've cleared a big space up to the road, but more importantly they've destroyed so many steps it's going to be very hard for the Vichy to recover in their half of the turn. The Vichy rolled for 2 supply points, which is good, but more importantly we have to get to the recovery phase. And these little white X's are the number of losses they've currently sustained. That's 7. So we can pull 2 units off of this gigantic dead pile here. The dead pile is getting very big, so hopefully we can get somebody good out of this. What could we have done any worse? These are our recoveries. A cavalry company and an artillery battalion. Completely worthless. I think we're going to see some hurt in the next turn or so for the Vichy, probably even the end of the game. I do think I have lost this game without question. I was too confident in my ability to hold these positions and didn't put enough forces over here for defense and depth. So really I have 1 company cavalry here, which I'm going to have to move here, try to protect against this cavalry. I have 1 really weak battalion that I'll try to hold this town with. And then I have this bit of artillery that's under here, and that's it. My only chance, really, is to win initiative next turn, because I'll start to shift forces from over here to Damascus, get them fueled up and moving, and maybe I can get enough forces over there to hold in the east. Otherwise, I think I'll just execute those moves and we'll see where we end up. So I stripped quite a few forces out of the Damascus area, fueled them up and moved them. I considered putting them in reserve mode, but I didn't think I didn't have enough reserve markers really to make that extra bounce to their movement worthwhile, so I just fueled them and moved them. I'm going to try some kind of spoiling attack right here around Kenitra. Probably just going to cost me dearly, but I feel like I need to do something to disrupt the coalition a little bit. And I managed to get the barely along the line here. That's very weak. Cavalry company is just going to try to block the way. Very weak battalion here. At least I did manage to get these armored cars onto the road. But it's not going to help me very much when the time comes. But I have 3 strong units here that I might be able to get onto the road in time. So I think we'll just call that our movement phase. I forgot to move my French air, so I'm just going to do that and give myself that little advantage. I'm going to duck this barrage right here on that hex. I'm so generous, I'm even going to allow myself to correct the hex I meant to put them on. That one right there with the 2 units. So we have 16 barrage factors on those 2 units in the hills. And that got us a disorganized, which is just what we were looking for. On the supply phase, everyone's in trace supply except this unit right here. He has a pretty poor action rating as well. So we roll for attrition, and he does not survive. So we'll kill that guy. No big loss, we knew he was going to die anyway. Now for the Allied reaction phase, we already used our aircraft. We have no reserve artillery or anything, so we're not going to be able to respond to this attack, and we can see is in the offing here. So in the Vichy combat phase, even though I have a fair amount of supply on this side of the map. I'm not going to squander a barrage attack here. So I'm just going to go ahead and launch right into my attack. I'm going to throw this stack and that hex against that disorganized hex right there. So we pay our supply. We have 20 factors attacking 12 in hills. Did I say 12? I mean 6 since they're disorganized, or half strength. We roll some middling dice. Attacker takes an option, defender takes an option. We're going to go ahead and take our option. What the hell? We're getting beat down all across the board. Now it's going to force the defender to take their option as well. So we're going to go ahead and retreat these guys. And remain disorganized. I think I'll go ahead and advance into that hex. So that'll be our one and only attack. Since I have no reserves and didn't earn an exploitation, that's going to be it for our combat phase and our exploitation phase. So we have nothing to clean up. We're basically going to call this a done turn. So this turn was all about the coast road. Allies did manage to breach effectively this next river line here, just through casualties they inflicted. They weren't quite able to get across the last river line here, but they're in a pretty good position that if they have the chance, they can probably jump right through this little cavalry battalion and advance up this track. Now, the Vichy were able to move some pretty strong forces, get them close, but not quite in a position to counterattack or even defend. So we have plenty of artillery. Frankly, these gigantic stacks here are mostly artillery. We're getting a little low on our infantry. We have no more armored units. They're all in the dead pile. So the Allied position is a little tenuous, but they're still in a much better spot than the French, potentially for the next turn. The French are fortunate enough to get initiative, essentially pull off a double turn. I think they'd be able to shore up this line and make the coast road a bastion once again. This little spoiling attack may come to nothing, but at the very least we have these units disorganized and won't be able to hurt us in the next turn, and potentially it gives us an opportunity to hit them if we're able to secure another turn with initiative. The far eastern side is really going very slowly. Not spending a lot of supply over here, so the Free French are moving only as fast as their feet will take them. No motorized movement. Well, except for that armored unit. But the Damascus line is still strong enough to hold. It's not going to be as big as I thought it would be. I intended to try to make some real counterattacks here, but that was not to be with our collapse on the coast road. So that's where we're going to leave this turn. We'll play a little bit more and catch up. Hopefully we get to continue this game. It's not the total collapse on the coast road that I fear.